Good morning, PRI guests and vendors. This is Melinda Russell with the Women's Motorsports Network. I'm based in Kalamazoo, Michigan, and I'm all about the women in motorsports. I always say that I promote the women, I love the women, but we couldn't do this without the men, so we have to include them as well. My podcast is called the Women's Motorsports Network Podcast. You can find it on pretty much any platform where you listen to your podcast. I also publish an online magazine all about women in motorsports. I'm always looking for new people to interview, new girls anywhere from 5 to 105. So anybody that's out there listening that has a daughter or a wife or someone that you know that should be interviewed and featured on the podcast or in the magazine, please reach out to me, Melinda Russell, on Facebook, and let me know, because everybody has a story. And I love telling stories. And so that's one of the reasons that I really love doing a podcast. So today I have a very special guest. I've known Julie Nataas for 7 years, Julie, a long time. She was one of the first gals that I knew when I first started the Women's Motorsports Network back in 2017. And I've watched her grow, and I've watched her be very successful. I've watched her turn from kind of a young girl into a woman. Wouldn't you say, Julie?
Right, yes.
Yes, for sure.
Yes.
So normally I try to do a little introduction in that, but you know what? It's always better coming from the person. So Julie, I'm really going to let you kind of take the show over. I want you to just give us a little background. You know, you didn't just wake up one day and start driving a car.
No, I did
not. No. So why don't you start kind of from the beginning and tell us where you started, what your journey's been like, and then where you are now.
Well, so I'm Julie Nataas, and I am now 28 years old. I am from Norway, and that's where I grew up. I grew up in Europe racing together with my dad and my grandfather. They were both race car drivers, so like a lot of other people growing up in the motorsport, the first time they were at the racetrack is when they were a baby, and same goes for me, but instead of growing up at the racetracks here in America, I grew up at the racetracks in Europe together with them. My dad raced Pro Mods, Top Fuel cars, and funny cars, and is a Top Fuel European champion. So that's what I always wanted to do. Like when I turned 8 years old, all I wanted to do was to be a race car driver, because that's the age you could be at that point to drive a junior dragster. So when I was 9, I got my first junior dragster, and I started racing, and that's literally all I ever have been wanting to do ever since. So I started junior dragsters, then I started go-kart racing, and then I got my Super Comp car at the same time as I also started driving Formula cars. So I had a little bit of a diversity in motorsport, because I felt like drag racing in Europe wasn't like every weekend. I needed to race all the time. So on the weekdays after school, I would be go-kart racing, and then on the weekends, I would either run like a drag race or a go-kart race. And once I got a little bit older and got into the Formula cars, we also had to start deciding if we were going to do a Formula car race that weekend. Once I had finished all of that, I did move to Santa Barbara, California for school. This was right after high school, so I was thinking I was going to take like a year off, like a gap year, to try to figure out what I was going to do with my life, although I knew that I wanted to be a race car driver. So I moved to California, and I kind of just started networking with people in the industry. I also already had some friends at the racetrack here. That also comes from my dad used to race over here in the States like a couple times a year when he was racing Top Fuel. So I kind of already knew a little bit about where I wanted to go and how I wanted to get into NHRA drag racing. So that's kind of what I started doing when I was 18. And, you know, that 1 year has now turned into almost 10 years. I still haven't moved back to Norway. So I started university, and I got my bachelor degree in marketing, business, and entrepreneurship. My last year at the university, I did start racing with Randy Meyer Racing. I got my A-Fuel license with them and kind of raced like a part-time schedule while I was still in school. And once I have graduated, I started full-time racing, and that's now been my job since 2019. And I won a world championship, a couple of regional championships, driver of the year a couple years. What else?
Lots
There's lots of things going on.
Lots of things, and you know, typically someone that starts racing at a young age, they do try a variety of kinds of racing.
Yes.
You know, go-karts, stock cars, dirt, asphalt, whatever it might be. So that's not that unusual, but
I have to say, though, in drag racing, I don't feel like we do see a lot of the drivers that have ventured out in different motorsport. I've seen me and maybe 2 other drivers that actually have experience outside of drag racing, which I think is interesting. Because anywhere else you go, you'll be like, oh, I drove this,
right,
and this, and this.
Right. I was just at the Women with Drive event the last couple days, and a lot of the girls or women that were on the panels that had come through racing had done a lot of different types of racing.
Yeah.
Whereas, like you said, if you're a drag driver, you start in a junior dragster, and you pretty much stick with that because that seems to be your passion.
Yeah.
When I first started the Women's Motorsports Network, I went to a drag race at Martin, Michigan, which is close to my home. And I knew there were a lot of women in racing, you know, but I had no idea in 2017 how many women there are in racing, involved in all kinds of aspects of racing. I went to the races that weekend, and I could not believe how many little girls, up to like teenagers, how many there were. They outnumbered the boys, I swear. There were so many of them. And I was just blown away. I could not believe it. And I thought, okay, I'm doing the right thing because there's way more women involved in motorsports than I thought, but I don't hear about them. And so that's kind of what's been my passion.
That's where you came in.
That's been my passion, is to share your stories. Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
We do need people like you.
Well, thank you, Julie. I love you. You know that. I follow your career. I've followed you for a long time. So what would you say has been the hardest part of being a race car driver? Either just as a race car driver and then as a woman in racing.
As a race car driver, I think the hardest part is getting sponsorships. Being out there and actually making money doing what we're doing is the hardest part. Of course, it's a hobby for a lot of us, but for me, I've been lucky and I've had this for a career for quite some time. But now that I have decided to leave my race car team, I'm in a position where I don't have a job for next year yet. I don't have, I guess, sponsorships yet for that next step and to continue to do this. So I think it's not necessarily showing people that you have the talent, it's finding the right money and the right partners and the right business to get there.
Yeah, and that we talked about that a little bit earlier. That's true from little girls and quarter midgets all the way to the top, you know, the funding. And I think it's not just women.
No, it's for everyone in motorsport.
It's everyone. I do think it sometimes is a little tougher for the women to convince somebody that they're worthy and respected in the sport enough to promote their brand, be part of their brand.
Yeah, a lot of the times I feel like a female driver would have to prove themselves twice or work twice as hard as the men so that, like, to actually show people or prove people that they can do what they are doing. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying that it's necessarily easier for men to get sponsorships either, but it's just the world that we live in. It's not just in motorsport. Like, female do have to work twice as hard to prove people that they can do what they're doing.
Yeah. I've seen that, and that's frustrating for me. And yet I do a lot of reading, listen to a lot of podcasts, and women though tend to be very good brand ambassadors. So I just was listening to a podcast where they were talking about women are more loyal to a brand. So let's say that you are partnering with ABC whatever, and because I'm a woman and I know you and I follow you, I'm going to look at that product, probably buy that product, and be a fan of that product as well, because I believe in you, and whatever you are, sharing, promoting, then I have to trust that you know about the product. And so the women, women overall are more loyal to a brand, and more so even in motorsports than like other things. So, once we can get that through the heads of the people that sign the checks,
right,
then we'll be
pretty cool.
We'll be a step ahead, won't we? For sure.
Yeah, another thing that we saw this year in NHRA is that we have a highly growing female fan base, which I think is pretty cool. Like, I even see it day to day when I'm at the racetrack. We have a lot of females, even like not just young girls anymore. We actually have like people my age coming up to me in the pits, which I think is pretty cool. So we see it growing.
Yeah, it is growing for sure. I mean, every year the women at the racetrack are bigger in numbers for sure.
Yeah.
And I think events like the Women with Drive that I was just at. I was at the inaugural event 4 years ago in Nashville. There was maybe 100 women or so, and over the week, or Monday and Tuesday, we had over 600 women.
That's amazing.
And there was a handful of men. I want to say maybe 50 or so.
Yeah.
But to see that many women, and they came from different countries.
Yeah.
They came from all over the United States. It wasn't just Indy based. It was from
that's
everywhere.
Pretty cool.
And so, I love promoting the women because I want them to get the exposure, but I also want people to understand that the sport is not just a man's sport anymore, and
right.
It hasn't been for a while. But people that don't know or follow motorsports have no idea about that.
Oh, no.
No.
You always have some of them that are just like looking at a female and still making ignorant comments, but I feel like a lot of the men or maybe people my age have realized that, it's not like that anymore.
No, I agree with that.
Yeah.
So let's first talk about your plans for next year as much as you can, and then we're going to go back and find out some of the reasons why you've stuck with it. So why don't you start with, I kind of interrupted you. Tell me what's your journey now, where you are, and what you hope to be doing next year, and then we'll move on from there.
So this year was my last year with my team, NHRA Racing. I just left them, so right now, at this moment, I am a race car driver without a race car to drive next year. I am pursuing and trying to find sponsorship and partners for next year to drive a top fuel dragster or a funny car. Kind of depends on what's out there. I would definitely love to drive a funny car, but I don't think there's a lot of people that would hand me a funny car and be like, yeah, let's go, Julie. Because I just don't have that much experience in one of them. But I'd love to do that. So that's kind of what I'm trying to do.
Yeah. And, how do you get experience? Seat time.
You got to be in there.
You got to be in the car. So you've proven that you're a good race car driver because you started, and look at the success you've had. So there's no reason to think you couldn't do the same thing in a funny car.
Right, and I do. I drove the A-Fuel funny car that NHRA Racing built, and so I have a little bit of experience. I also think that it helps that I have go-kart and Formula Basic experience because I have not only driven dragsters. Like when I did drive NHRA Racing's funny car, I have never had so much hate towards me my entire career. I had people come up to me in the pit telling me how I can't drive a funny car because I'm a dragster driver and I'm a girl. So that makes me kind of even want to drive a funny car even more, just to prove that, hey, I can be just as badass as all these other men out here driving these funny cars. Like, funny cars are just not for men.
No, they're not. And it's just so irritating, isn't it? Don't get me started. Sometimes I don't have a filter. When I hear somebody do that to a woman,
yeah,
it's like, what the heck are you thinking? The car doesn't know that it's a girl in the seat.
Right.
And it's all about passion. I think passion is so important because a lot of times racing is what's going on in your head, isn't it? It's not just how you handle the wheel or whatever. You can.
Right, it's a mental game for sure.
It's a mental game for sure. And so that's really frustrating, Julie. I'm sorry you had to go through that. But that's also an incentive.
It's part of it, I guess.
Incentive, isn't it?
Yeah.
To be like, oh, I'm going to show you. And that's what you have to keep holding on to, that I can do this. And I don't. You're one person. the rest of the people don't think that.
That's
for sure.
right. Yeah, I did have one guy throw in my face like, "Oh, you want to drive a funny car? You better be throwing some weights around in the gym." And I'm like, am I not? Like, I've lost 20 pounds this year, and now I'm literally throwing balls and weights and hammers and whatever wheels around in the gym. Do Pilates. I work out in a hot environment, like for heat training. Like, I am literally doing everything I can to be the best prepared for next year, even though I don't have a race car to drive yet.
Right. And you have to do that. You have to constantly be preparing for what you want to have happen, because if you don't, and then somebody comes along, now you've lost your opportunity. So you've got to always be having the mindset that this is going to happen.
Yeah.
And I know it's going to happen for you. I got a lot of confidence in you.
Thank you.
So Julie, what's been your favorite thing about being a driver? If you could pick one or two things, or however many, but just tell me what you know, why do you keep doing this? This is a hard business to be in. It's a hard, especially in, not just for women, period. It's a hard business to be in. Things change, your car breaks, all kinds of things happen. Why do you stick it out? What do you love about this?
I mean, I obviously love driving these race cars and going down the track. I love how challenging it is to get this race car to be perfect, because in a drag race you only have a couple seconds to make them perfect. So my crew chief and everything that we do in the pit has to be right for it all to go together. So it's kind of not a play or a game, but you're like, okay, let's make this work, and then you make it down the track, and it's so rewarding. And especially the races that are so close and so tight, and you're just like, wow, this just happened. And then it's also like, I love to win. Like, it's the fire inside of me that, like, hey, I want to go beat this guy or girl like right next to me. And then there's the other side of racing where you have the fans and the people coming up to you that you get to entertain, or they get to look up to you and what you're doing, which I think is really, really cool. Like, especially having the younger girls come up to you and asking you all the questions about race cars and how they can become a race car driver too. So there's a lot of sides of racing that I love, because I also love the marketing and the business side of it, and trying to figure out a marketing or a business plan for a company to make them succeed because they're part of racing, and how I can succeed because they're part of my brand. So there's different sides of it that I love.
Well, there is. It's not just about going down the track, for sure. And that honestly is probably the last part. You know, all the other things have to fall in line in order to get your car on the track. I often say to people that are casual fans, or maybe first timers at the track, or there's a lot of people that just show up at the track, watch the race, and go home. They never think about the fact that the team has been there since who knows what time that morning, and they've worked all day getting the car ready, cleaning it up, doing all the things they have to do. They don't think about how much it costs for 8 people to pay a pit pass, and all the things. How much are the tires? How much is this? The gas you put in it. You don't think about it as a fan. You just go and enjoy the show. But there's a lot of people behind the scenes and a lot of money that goes into putting one car on the track.
Yes.
And I encourage people, especially, I follow all kinds of racing, but dirt track, asphalt, short track racing, that's where my passion is. Yeah. And people just come to the show, and I encourage them, ask your favorite driver if you can go to the pits with them one night. Yes. And be there when they get there, pay your pit pass, do all the things that they do. You're going to be much more appreciative of not only that driver, but the racetrack and all the things it takes for me to enjoy racing.
Yes, I agree with that. Then they can actually see what's going on. It's not as easy as it might be looking like.
No, it's not. You don't just show up at the track on race day and put the car on and go. You're working all week long doing things, and those are the things that people don't see, for sure. So, would you encourage a young girl to get involved in drag racing?
Oh, absolutely. And even if you like, because driving is not for everyone, but there are so many other things that you can do in motorsport as a girl or boy. Like, there's the marketing side of it, there's the social media side of it, there's PR. You can work on the race car, you can be a crew chief. Like, there's so many sides of racing that I don't think a lot of people think about. In Pomona, California, at our last race, we had some high school students come out there, and they asked me kind of the same questions, like, would you recommend a career in racing? And I was like, yes, but you don't have to be a driver. And they were like, wait, what do you mean? I don't have to be a race car driver? And I'm like, no, here are all the things that you can do inside of racing. And for some of them, I think it opened their eyes. They were like, wait, there's other thing I can do in racing than actually be the race car driver. Mm-hmm. So,
yeah, because you think about it takes math and science and all those things. If you like accounting, you could be the accounting for the business side of it. Somebody's got to do all the travel arrangements,
right?
All the things they do. A race team is basically a business. Yep. And so they need all the occupations that a normal business would need.
Yes.
And sometimes some unique ones as well. I interviewed a lady who owns a beauty shop in the Morrisville area, and she actually also on the weekends is the hair and makeup person for the NBC on-air talent.
Yeah.
I never thought about that was a thing.
Right.
And she absolutely loved it and had great relationships with those broadcasters,
Yeah.
And so it got me to thinking, well, what about the catering? What about this or that? And there's so many things that people can do. And so I think it's just bringing it to their attention so they understand that yes, you don't have to be the driver.
You don't. And even with me right now that I don't have a race car to drive yet for next year, I'm thinking about other sides of motorsport, because I know for a fact that I'm still going to be a motorsport driver or not. So, I might be on the marketing or social media side or the business side of things when I'm not going to be in the driver's seat anymore.
Right. And, we see that, drivers don't drive forever. I mean, there isn't anybody I can think of that drove, forever till the day they died, probably. But anyway, there's a lot of other things that, Julie, you would be so good at.
Thank you.
I can't. Well, I know you well enough to know that there's a lot of things that you would be really good at and that you're passionate about. Yes, you love to drive, you love to go fast, and you love to win.
Right.
But you can also win when you're the PR person.
You can.
That's just a different kind of race as far as I'm concerned, for sure. So if you're listening to this and you need a beautiful, talented race car driver, let's get her in a car, and then if not, let's find her. You'd be an asset to any team for sure, Julie.
I appreciate that.
Yeah. So, what's the fastest you've ever gone? Do you know?
Well, ever since I made my top fuel debut in St. Louis, I think it's 317 miles per hour, but me and Travis Shoemake had a little bit of discussion about it, and I think it might be 320.
Okay.
But something like that.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, when you get out of a car after you've gone 317 miles an hour, what's that feeling like? I mean, are your legs shaky? Tell me about that. I've never gone that fast. Thank goodness. That's scary for me. But what's it like to get out of a car after you've gone that fast?
I mean, it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I am very, so my crew guys that worked on my race car when I made my top fuel debut, every time they came up to me at the top end, they were like, does this girl not have emotion? Is she okay? The only thing she's doing right now is critiquing everything about the run and literally giving us notes on what to change. So I think, of course, I'm a little bit out of breath, right then and there. But as soon as I let go of the gas pedal and I pull my parachutes, I analyze the run. I'm like, this and this happened, this and this did not happen. I need to make sure that my crew chiefs and my crew guys know so that they can change this, and this. They were expecting me to come out there, yell, scream, cry, which I have done in the past. But I think I'm so race car minded and also business minded, and I want to win. I want to do the best. But I just constantly, like, I go straight to business. Like, what just happened right here, right now?
Yeah, so, it only takes you 2 or 3 seconds, whatever it is, to go down the track. How can you think of all that stuff in that short length of time?
I mean, it just comes from making a lot of runs. The first time I hit the gas pedal in an A-fuel dragster, I didn't see anything at all. Like, it was all a blur. And now hitting the gas pedal on the A-fuel dragster, I feel, I hear, I see everything. So although it's only a couple seconds, your body is just adjusted to it, and you've made enough runs to know what feels right and what maybe sounds wrong or right. So you just immediately, you know. And in the top fuel car, it wasn't that much of a difference, but it had a different driving feeling. So I could immediately tell that, but I wasn't that far behind the race car as you could be. I was just right there with it because I haven't had that many runs yet. But once you have consistently amount of runs and then like run after run after run, you start get caught up with the car and hopefully a little bit ahead of it instead of behind it, so that you do hear and see and feel these things.
That makes sense. Yeah, that's going that fast. Wow. Have you ever had any things that didn't go right, and how did you handle? I hate to talk about negative about wrecks and stuff, but it happens to everybody.
It does. It's part of the game. We all know.
Tell me about that, and how's that feel, and how do you deal with a bad day at the track, that kind of thing?
I think there's only been 2 times where I've been like, oh my, like this is gonna go really, really bad, or it can go really, really bad. The first time was when my gas pedal got stuck and kind of hung, so I was just kind of holding on, and I shut everything off, and it was still going, and I'm just like, why is it still going? Like, I even clicked the oh shit button, as I call it, and it's still not wanting to stop. But it's a nitro car, it's not your regular car, so of course it's gonna run until it runs out of fuel.
Yeah.
But I remember thinking that I just needed to keep the car straight, and I ended up in the sand trap, and everything was fine. But that was like one of the first times that I was like, I might actually die right now. I remember going down the track, and I'm like, I'm gonna get really hurt. This is gonna be bad, so let's just keep it straight, and that's gonna hurt less. But we made it. It was fine. The car got shut off right before the sand trap, and thank God it was in the burnout and not on a full run, because it had a stopper to it, so it wasn't like full throttle. It was only like burnout throttle.
Okay.
So that was great. And the second time was it 2 years ago? Maybe a year ago. 2 years ago. I was running the final rounds of the Jags All-Star, which is a race within a race. It was like 11 p.m. at night, and the final round, I go down the track, and it's starting to get cold, so it's a little bit tricky with the conditions and how to get the race car down the track. So my race car gets a tire shake, and when it shakes the tires, it literally wants to rattle your brains out, and the car does not want to go down the track. So when that happens, you pedal the race car. And I did. It was still shaking a little bit. It still it didn't fully recover. One of my parachutes comes out because it shook so bad, and then all of a sudden, my whole body of my race car just flows up and blows up in the air. I had a body in front of my face. I was like, what is happening? Again, I couldn't see anything, so I was like, let's just hope this is going straight and I'm not hitting anything, because I can't see literally anything. But I still couldn't see the car in the other lane, so I was like, okay, I guess hopefully I don't have to worry about him. I think that I'm going straight, it's fine. All of a sudden I can see again, and I'm like, oh, I just won the race, but I don't have a body on my race car. So, that was a little bit, I guess, not as terrifying as when you have your gas pedal stuck, but it was definitely an experience. And yeah, winner circle photo without a body on my race car was interesting.
And that's a story. It's like, what happened here, Julie?
Yeah.
When you see those pictures, for sure. Yeah, that's the thing about motorsports as well. We never know what's going to happen. You can plan, you can prepare, you can buy the best of everything.
Yeah.
but it only takes one little screw or one little bolt not there or whatever it could be. And you just don't know what's going to happen, so you just have to be prepared. And the more you drive, the more small or big situations you get in, and you learn how to handle it for sure. So
that's true.
Yeah, that's part of being seat time, that we call it, don't we?
Yep.
You know, getting the experience, and that's the good thing that you have going for you now. You do have a good amount of experience for sure. So
that is true.
I love that.
Yeah.
So your dad was a racer. Was your mom on board with her little girl being a race car driver?
She got used to my dad being a race car driver, so I don't think she's ever really been worried about me driving. She also used to work in the jury, on the jury side of racing, like in the Norwegian Sports or Motorsport Association, so she's always been involved with motorsport, so it's not like it was anything strange to her. So it's actually been pretty easy with her. I feel like most moms are just worried, but she's actually been pretty great with it.
Yeah, and I think eventually moms kind of, if you can't beat them, you got to join them. It's kind of the thing. So instead of, staying home worrying, it's almost better to be there to know what's going on and be a part of it instead of fighting it. So, I don't run across too many moms that are not supportive once they realize that their daughters, this is what they want to do, and so it's like, okay, I really wish she'd take ballet classes, but if she's gonna drive a race car, then I'm gonna be there to watch her.
She did try. I was a dancer, so there's only two things that I've done for sports my entire life. I guess you can call dance a sport, but
it is.
I danced as a kid, for 10 years, and then, racing started up, and I was like, well, I guess I'll dance for fun and do racing now, but anything else I would not do.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I don't find too many girls, when they're younger, they do softball or volleyball, and as they go through school. Yeah. But the ones that are really passionate are the ones that give all that up, even in high school, and just say, I'm going to do this. I want to ask you about, so you raced from the time you were little. Did you go to a public school?
I did when I started high school, I actually started a private athlete high school, so that I was going to have not more time, but they were going to be willing to support my racing career as well as making sure that I got my degree and graduated high school. So I was actually allowed to go racing whenever I needed to, and they would work around schedule, for tests and all of that. I could do it whenever I got home, or we would do something while I was on the road, over, Zoom, which wasn't Zoom back then, but was a Skype, They made it work and made sure that I could do something, make sure that this could be my career at the same time as, hey, let's get your high school degree.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this is a question that I hear, or answers I hear from a lot of girls, is that they don't have a lot of friends through school because they're gone every weekend.
Right.
How was that for you?
Yes and no. I actually, although I've lived here for 10 years, I think I'm actually the closest to my high school friends. We're a group of 6 girls, and we immediately became this group of 6 girls when we started high school, because we were all passionate about something. We all moved from different places in Norway, so we kind of came this little group together that were always together in school but also always traveling, so we all understood what we were all doing and why we were all gone so much.
Yeah, and that kind of made me sad, thinking about it, that they missed so much of the, the things on the weekends. They're not going to the movies with their friends, and they're not going to the dances and some of the things. And, I used to really get bummed out when girls would say, I didn't really have a lot of friends in school. My friends were the people at the racetrack. Yeah. And so at first it was, hard for me to, that my kids' friends in school were the most important thing, to them, and that. But now that I hear it more often, the girls are okay with it normally. They say, no, I didn't really have, a group of friends that I did stuff with. My friends were at the racetrack. And the more I think about that, those are lifelong friends, the ones at the racetrack.
Right.
It's great to have friends in school, but a lot of times you get out of high school and you all go a different way, and it's hard
True.
to stay track. Although nowadays it's much easier because of social media. But when I got out of high school, we all kind of went our own ways, and you didn't keep track of people. And so I'm always curious how that goes, because guys don't always have those kind of relationships that the girls have when they're growing up. Yeah.
I have to say, though, like, me being in high school and being a race car driver at the same time, I feel like I still was pretty good about being with my friends. I was usually the one that was like, let's go do this, let's throw this party, we're going here, we're going there. Even if it was on a weekday, yes, that sounds bad because we were under 18, but reality of it is we did not live close to home, so we had each other.
Yeah.
So we were together all the time.
Right.
Yeah. When we graduated high school in Norway, we party for 4 or 5 weeks in a party bus. So we start a business. Yes, first year of high school, we start a business, which is the party bus. So already at that point, you kind of create this group that you're always going to be with for the next 3 years in high school. So we did that. We had, the CEO. I was the CEO, and then you have a marketing person, and then you have a economy person, and then you buy a bus, and then you plan this whole concept. You create songs, you create merchandise, and you throw release parties and do all these things over the next 3 years, which I also think was part of why we were such a close-knit group. Although we were 25 people on my bus, and we're just 6 of the girls that are still like staying together now, but because of that, outside or after school, that we have this project together also, I think, created.
I've never heard that, but that is really cool. You've probably just given a bunch of girls in high school some ideas that their parents are going to be like, oh, no, that's not happening.
Well, in Norway, it's something they've done for years and years. Like, my parents did it, too, so they were never, like, against it. Like, they were always just prepared for, like, oh, yeah, the 4 or 5 last weeks of school that Julie is in high school, right before her finals, she and all her friends are going to be partying every night and then go to school the next day. Okay, sure. But they did it, so they couldn't say anything.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Sounds like a fun place to live. That's
we have
for
fun
sure.
in Norway.
It sounds like you do, for sure. So, we don't know what's going to happen for sure next year. We're going to pray about it. We're going to get you out there, and I know good things are going to happen. Are you going to be in the United States? Is this where you're going to live forever, do you think?
I think so. I don't really have a plan about moving back to Norway as of right now. Like moving back to our field would feel like I would be starting all over again. I do have my green card here. I have my whole life here, considering it's almost been 10 years. So I'm not going to be moving back anytime soon. I'll be involved with motorsport over here on this side of the country, this side of the world, I should say.
Yeah. For sure. Yeah, it's going to be so fun to see what happens. I know it's a little scary right now, but Julie, good things are going to happen for you, I know. I can remember when I first met you and interviewed you, you lived in California, and you were going to go back home. You said you were here for college.
Yeah.
But I kind of thought, I don't know. I think she's loving the racing here enough that I don't know if she's going to go back. And then you never did. And now you live in the heart of racing, which is right here where we are, Indianapolis for sure. So, I'm excited to see where life's going to take you, because
I know. I am too.
I know it's going to be good.
Interesting.
It is. It's going to be interesting. It's going to be really good. So, Julie, is there anything we haven't talked about that we need to get out there about you, what's happening, or anything we didn't share?
So.
We usually do a pretty good job of covering what's happening, for sure.
I feel like we do.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So, why don't you share if somebody wanted to get a hold of you, what's the best way to find Julie?
You can find me on all my social medias. Instagram is Julie Nataas. My Facebook is Julie Nataas Racing. That's typically where you will find me all the time. Yeah.
And spell your last name so that they can find it for sure.
Nataas.
Yeah, Nataas. So
Yes.
So look for her, follow her if you're not following her already. Let's get 2025 ready to go so that she can know what the plan is. You know, I'm a planner, Julie.
Oh, I am too.
I have to know the plan. And
Me too.
There was a gal yesterday that said, she was an engineer, and she said, I have to make a list and I have to check things off. And I was thinking, that sounds like me. I make lots of lists. So good luck to you, Julie. I'm going to be excited to see, like I said, where you're going. And if you're out there listening, get a hold of Julie, follow her, and let's find another successful path for her to take.
Right. I agree.
Right.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Julie. I appreciate you taking the time to be here.
Thank you.
So this is the PRI podcast studio. We are located off of Capitol Avenue, kind of in a way around the corner, so you might have to look for us. But there's a whole lineup today, tomorrow, and Saturday of great podcast guests. So make sure that you come over here, hang out, listen, and appreciate that they invited us to be here today. So everybody have a good show.